Hello and welcome to the show. I am Joe Tophat. It's been a full year since the King of the Hill revival has been released, and I haven't done a single video about it. To remedy this, I'm going to review what I think is the best episodes from season 14, Bobby Gets Grilled, otherwise known as the cultural appropriation episode. So without further ado, let's begin. The episode starts off with Bobby, now head chef and minority owner of Robota Chain, talking to Hank on the cell phone. Hank, Peggy, Dale, and Nancy are on their way to the Bush Presidential Library and plan to eat at Robota Chain. Hank, who didn't want the Gribbles to come along, well, he didn't want Dale to come along, but same difference, asks Bobby if he is okay that the Gribbles are coming. Bobby is fine with them coming since he views the Gribbles as family. I actually find it heartwarming that Bobby considers the Gribbles to be family. That's very different from what Hank felt about Luann. He didn't consider her family, and she's his niece by marriage. It actually makes sense that Bobby would view the Gribbles as family since Joseph is like the brother he never had, and I think he sees Dale as his crazy uncle. This is probably the most wholesome moment in the season, or specifically this episode. Before going to the library, the Hills and Gribbles plan on stopping by Robota Chain first. Hank wants to check and see if Bobby's propane tank is in working order. Only problem is, Bobby doesn't use propane. He uses charcoal. Specifically, he uses benchaton, but I'm just going to call it charcoal for the rest of the video. And he hasn't told Hank yet. Emilio, Bobby's sous chef, doesn't understand what the big deal is about using charcoal over propane. Emilio is easily the best new character in this series. He's a great employee, and he's very respectful to Bobby. It's also interesting to see a character who doesn't understand what a big deal propane is to Hank. But he's about to find out pretty soon. Bobby comes up with an idea of pretending like there was a robbery and the robbers only stole his propane grill. I get why Bobby would not tell Hank right away that he's using charcoal, but I think he was wrong to do that because, yeah, it's not going to make it any easier, but he's only delaying the inevitable. Anyway, when the Hills and Gribbles show up, Bobby introduces himself as their chef. Peggy gives him a big hug. Hank scolds Peggy over her huge display of affection, saying that Bobby's employees won't respect a mama's boy. I do agree with Hank on this point. Peggy didn't mean any harm, but a couple of Bobby's employees did chuckle after she gave him the hug. Hank, who had people work under him, knows how this looks to the employees. Maybe they wouldn't tease Bobby about this, but still, it's not a good look for him. Anyway, Hank wants to check Bobby's propane grill. This is where Bobby comes clean that he uses charcoal. I admire the fact that Bobby doesn't insult Hank's intelligence with an obvious lie. That shows how much respect he has for his dad. As you might have guessed, Hank doesn't take the news very well. Bobby explains that the reason why he went with charcoal is because that is more authentic to Robota. Hank, still salty over Bobby not using propane, takes the others to the Bush Library to learn some authentic history to cleanse his mind. Although I think Hank didn't handle this situation very well, I do think he's kind of justified in his anger. He had a long conversation with Bobby about the different propane grills he could use. The conversation was fun to him, and he was looking forward to working on the grill. He feels betrayed by his son, who didn't inform him sooner that he wasn't going to use propane. Don't misunderstand me. I don't believe that Hank would have handled the situation any better had he known sooner. But I do think it's possible he wouldn't have been as mad. Essentially what Bobby did was led Hank on, and that wasn't cool. I understand why Bobby did what he did, but it doesn't make it right. I'm not going to go over the B plot in great detail, since I don't have a lot to say about it. All that happens is Hank finds that a lot of people agree with Dale's crazy conspiracies about history. Hank, who loves history, finds this frustrating. Being a lover of history myself, I feel for Hank. I have encountered a lot of people who accept crazy conspiracy theories as fact. Though, to be fair, some crazy conspiracy theories do turn out to be true, and some just have a kernel of truth. Anyway, Bobby's charcoal supply is starting to run low, and his supplier went out of business. Lucky for him, his old supplier recommended Mr. Yoshito as his new supplier. Only problem is, Mr. Yoshito refuses to do business with Bobby since he isn't Japanese. Okay, I know I've said this is the best episode from season 14, but it isn't without flaws. The biggest flaw in this episode is that they never mention Dorichio or the fact that Bobby has been to Japan. It's odd that the writers put Bobby in this situation without mentioning the fact that he has a Japanese uncle. Honestly, I don't think Jorichiro would have been Bobby's get-out-of-jail-free card with Mr. Yoshito. You see, when Bobby brought Chang, his business partner, over to talk to Mr. Yoshito, he wasn't impressed. Even after introducing Chang as the owner of Robotic Chain, Mr. Yoshito only saw him as a token. Yes, Chang is Laotian, and he even mentions that. But the fact that Mr. Yoshito would dismiss Chang as a token when he thought he was Japanese, even though Chang and his dad are the owners, shows that Jorichiro would have been seen the same way. A simple rewrite could have had Bobby mention his uncle and describe the circumstances of his birth. Mr. Yoshito could dismiss the connection since Jorichiro is Cotton's love child and abandoned by him. Yes, I know Cotton technically didn't abandon him since he was forced to leave Jorichiro's mother behind, and Cotton didn't know about his son until decades later. Still, I could see Mr. Yoshito using that against Bobby. Plus, the guy is a huge hypocrite since he himself wasn't born Japanese, just raised by Japanese parents. Anyway, Bobby goes next door to an Italian restaurant called Capitelli to see if the owners know another charcoal supplier. They offer to give him information if Bobby would agree to exchange leases with them. Bobby assumes that they're making some kind of joke about Italians being part of the mafia and laughs. They find this offensive and threaten to join Mr. Yoshito in his crusade against Bobby if he doesn't give them what they want. I'm not really sure why they thought Bobby would exchange leases with them. Even if he was okay with it, Bobby only owns 15% of Robotic Chain. That means he would have to go discuss it with Chain and Ted to see if they are okay with it, since they are majority owners. Plus, they really have no right to be offended when they were playing into the stereotype. Anyway, Bobby has to face Ted about the problem. Ted orders Bobby to use propane, since it's cheaper and would get them out of this mess. Bobby doesn't want to do that, since he's trying to be authentic to Robota, Ted doesn't care about authenticity. The only reason why he helped Shane start the Japanese-German fusion restaurant is because there's no money to be made in a Laotian restaurant. It's like the universe is telling Bobby he should have listened to Hank and used propane. A German cultural group arrives to give Bobby a hard time. They want to know if Bobby has any German ancestry. He tells them that he thinks he does, but his ancestry is mostly Scottish and Irish. They also hate Bobby after learning that Cotton is his grandpa. Apparently, one of the Germans' grandpa was one of the 50 men Cotton killed. First the Japanese, then the Italians, now the Germans. It's like Bobby has to fight World War II all over again, with so many people pressuring him to use propane. Bobby begins to wonder if maybe Hank was right. I have to admit, when I first saw this episode, I thought it was going to end with Bobby switching to propane. The story sure was pressuring him to go that route. Yet, even though it would solve Bobby's problem, he doesn't want to do that. Not because he's trying to rebel against Hank, because he wants to be authentic to Robota. Bobby cares about both Japanese and German culture. It's not about the money for him. He may not be Japanese and only have some German blood in him. Bobby put a lot of effort into being authentic to both cultures. He's not engaging in cultural appropriation. He's shown appreciation for the cultures. Emilio gives Bobby some words of encouragement, so Bobby decides to invite everyone for dinner. His parents, the Gribbles, Ted and Shane, and everyone else to try his food. He successfully wins them over. Mr. Yoshida agrees to be his new supplier, and the Germans want to use their food for Oktoberfest. What about Hank? Turns out he likes the food too. I really love this scene where Bobby thinks Hank wants to spit the food out, so he calmly tells him where the bathroom is, showing that he doesn't need Hank's approval, but appreciates it when Hank gives it. Hank's experience at the library helped him realize why Bobby cares so much about authenticity. Their stories parallel each other. I don't think Hank realizes what a hard time Bobby was having with these people, but he can appreciate why Bobby wants to be authentic. It's good to see Hank put his propane bias aside for his son. Even though he does a headcanon to rationalize accepting it, Bobby Gets Grilled is a great episode, the best of season 14. It deals with a topical subject like cultural appropriation in a balanced way. Bobby is shown to appreciate the Japanese culture, while Ted and Shane just see it as a way to make money. I do love how the Japanese, the Italians, and the Germans are going after Bobby. Since his grandpa was a World War II veteran, it's like Bobby has to fight the war all over again. The B-plot is a lot of fun. I'm a history buff myself, so I know what Hank is going through. The thing I love most about this episode is that Bobby wasn't using charcoal to spite Hank. He was using it to respect both Japanese and German culture. It's ironic that Hank assumed that Bobby doesn't like tradition, when Bobby was being traditional in his choice. In a strange way, it shows that Bobby is more like Hank than either character realizes. I was afraid that this episode would end with Bobby switching to propane, since that would have solved his problem. To my surprise and delight, he didn't. Bobby has really become his own man. Hank doesn't change his opinion on charcoal, but comes to realize what Bobby is trying to do and shows his approval. Bobby may not need Hank's approval, but he does want it. I also love how the episode confirms that Bobby knows that John Redcorn is Joseph's dad. The original run only hinted that he might know, but this episode leaves no doubt that he does. My only complaint is that they never mention Jericho. We do see him in No Hank Left Behind, which is my least favorite episode so far, but that's a subject for another video. I have nothing else to say, but check this episode out for yourself. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments section what you guys think, and don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later.